Hello snowboarders of the internet, I am your host TC and today I'll be reviewing the Roam Agent Pro. This board is equipped with Roam's Fusion camber profile, so what that means is you're going to have camber in between the feet with rocker on the nose and the tail. So what that's going to do is that camber zone is going to give you all that drive, snap, and edge hold you're looking for, where the rocker in the nose and the tail is going to give you ease in and out of turns and float as well in that fresh pow. This board is offered in a 151, 154, 157, 160, 155 wide, 158 wide, and a 161 wide. I rode this board at Copper Mountain where it was a sunny day, but there were two different conditions for sure. At the top of the mountain, it was super windy, super icy, super cold actually, where it pretty much felt like full winter out there. Once you got halfway down, it became really slushy. And honestly, just a nice spring day that really the wind didn't get to it too much. I used my Ride Fuse boots and Jones Mercury bindings. When we're talking flex on this board, it is going to be coming in at definitely stiffer than the middle of the road, where it's not going to be a total plank since you do have that rocker zone in the nose and the tail. That's going to create a nice little flex point for the board, so you're not really relying on that camber zone too much. When you do go to torsionally flex it, it is going to be a little bit stiffer. It's not totally fighting you where you have to throw both your legs into it or anything, but it is going to be noticeably stiffer. Now when that translates on over into stability, it is going to be a stable board with some lively tendencies. So when you're going over those push piles or anything, if you keep it pointed straight, it'll go right over them. Where you're coming at an angle or something like that, it might get bounced around a slight bit, but nothing too crazy. When you're loading this thing up to ollie, you definitely do notice that little rocker zone and this rod in the tail where it's easier to load up, but that thing really does return all that energy you're putting into it, where it springs really well and it is stable. So it doesn't feel washy or anything like that, especially with this double kick on the tail. You might think, uh-oh, but actually it is really stable. And that is stable on the landing as well, where it doesn't try to sink in or anything like that. And it had really good edge hold when I was taking off the side hits and all of those little fun features. Now that translates directly into the jump section where it felt really good on jumps. You could either take it where you pop or you just let that lip do the work and it's still gonna give you a nice little spring to it. As I said before in my reviews, because of this little rod in the tail, it feels like it almost auto pops, so you don't really have to, and you'll still make that landing. But I enjoyed popping it off of the lip just because get a little extra air, a little bit more control. And even though it was soft on the landing, it didn't really sink in toe side or heel side, where it landed flat and kept that speed into the next jump. Since we have you here, you might as well like, subscribe, click that bell, and turn on those notifications just so you're not missing any of the scheduled programming we have coming out. When we're talking buttering on this board, just because it is a stiffer board, you think it wouldn't be that butterable, but it actually wasn't too bad. Where this rocker zone gave you a nice little platform on the tail and on the nose to butter either way when you do feel like it. You could also really lean back and wheelie this board because of how blunted it is on the tail here, and that double kick, it gives you a little bit extra surface area to work with. So when you really feel like getting steezy and really leaning it back, you can definitely do that on it. Expect a little bit of a pop out just because that rod in the tail mixed with this camber, it kind of wants to get a little snappy. So if you want to spin, feel free to. Now it feels pretty much identical when you get on a rail. It's not too different, where when you lean back, you feel a little bit of resistance, but really nothing too crazy, which I was really surprised about for it being a stiffer board, but it felt pretty good on those rails and ledges. When I was sliding it sideways, it felt really fine, honestly. Like, it didn't feel catchy or anything like that. It just felt like a standard snowboard that I was used to, where it didn't clank on the rail or anything. It just landed nice and smooth and had a nice little spring off at the end. This board actually carves really well, which surprised me for it being a true twin board. It actually carves like an all mountain or almost like a free ride board, where it felt really smooth edge to edge on those quick carves. When you got to those medium and large carves on the smooth runs, even if it was icy, like towards the top of the mountain there, it gripped really well. I didn't have any problem with it skipping out on the ice or anything like that. I can just lean into this, put all that power into the board and feel it dig in. When it was in the slush, it carved just as as well. And honestly, as long as you stay low on this thing through those like push piles, it's gonna do just fine for you. As I mentioned before, it really doesn't have a speed limit. So keep that in mind, just stay low and you'll be all good to go. Rider in mind. This board is for that all mountain rider that does like to venture into the park quite often. I know it's kind of classified as more of a park board, but honestly, this thing handled so well all mountain that I think it's more of that freestyle all mountain board where you can take it into the park and it's still gonna do just as well. They don't need the dampest board out there. They wanna feel those conditions underneath their feet just so they know what they're on and they can adjust accordingly. If you're looking for another way to support us, head on over to Angry Snowboarder VIP. Sure, I could explain it here, but we have a great video over there getting into it really in depth. I really like this board. It was really fun to me where if I wanted to, or if I had the option, this would be my daily driver. It does handle all mountain extremely well, and like I could pretty much do anything on it without having to worry. I could still press, I could still pop off the side hits, all that jazz. It just is a really good all-around board where if you have one and you want to be a little bit more aggressive out there, this would be an awesome board for you. Comparable boards: the Ride Benchwarmer, the Capita Outsiders, and the Jones Tweaker Pro. Recommended bindings: the Rome Katana Pro, the Union Atlas, and the Salomon Highlander. This has been my review of the Rome Agent Pro. If this sounds like the board for you, but you are just a little bit more board curious, I would recommend to check out the reviews that we have for comparable boards.